What's good? This is JVB representing SPD, and that is sportsperdiem.com. UFC 238 is less than a month away, and it's coming from here in my backyard, not literally, but here in my hometown, Chicago, Illinois, June 8th, UFC 238. And it's headlined by UFC flyweight champion Henry Cejudo going against the surging, dangerous Brazilian striker Marlon Moraes for the vacant UFC bantamweight championship. In the co-main event, the UFC Women's Flyweight Championship is on the line, where Valentina Shevchenko looks to defend her title for the very first time against Jessica Eye. Now, when I tell you that that's the main event and that's the co-main event, hardcore fan, casual fan, it doesn't matter. No disrespect to those fighters, but you're not really interested in coming to this show or watching this show. If you are, sorry I offended you, but I doubt it was many of you out there in the first place feeling that way. But last Friday afternoon, the tide turned just a little bit. Well, maybe not just a little bit. The tide changed pretty damn good, because now added to UFC 238 is a very pivotal lightweight fight between the returning Tony Ferguson taking on none other than Donald Cowboy Cerrone. Yes, the same Cowboy who just fought a couple of weeks ago when he thoroughly dominated Al Iaquinta. First of all, from the UFC's perspective, they felt the same way. And I'm not too big about the business aspect of it. I don't care about the ratings or the buy rates or how many tickets are sold. But the UFC is a business. They saw the card and they felt that it was lacking in star power. And that's no disrespect to the people that are involved in the main and co-main event or anybody else on that card. It's just what the UFC thought. So the UFC took action. And I believe the UFC was pretty damn lucky to have Tony Ferguson and Donald Cowboy Cerrone sign off on this fight. Now, as for the fight, first off, I want to say I'm happy that Tony Ferguson is clear to return the fight, because it's so fucking fun to watch him fight every time he steps into that octagon. But most importantly, I'm happy because it means that he's better mentally. You know, Tony Ferguson's been going through a lot of mental issues. He's been going through a lot of personal issues with his wife. He's been getting treatment for it. And I'm very happy to see him come back. And I'm very happy that he is mentally ready and physically ready to be back in the octagon. The last time we saw Tony Ferguson, he and Anthony Pettis put on a show. And Anthony dropped him in that fight. But Tony Ferguson, being crazy, being El Cucuy, kept going, kept putting on the pace, kept keeping the pressure on Anthony Pettis. And eventually he broke Anthony Pettis down. Anthony Pettis broke his hand. And Anthony Pettis could not go for the third round. Tony Ferguson beating Anthony Pettis by a corner stoppage after the second round. And even though Tony wasn't clear to get back into the octagon, he was definitely chopping at the bit. He was talking shit about Conor. He was talking shit about Khabib, because he wants to fight those guys. He wanted to get that fight with those guys because he wants to get the championship that he feels like he deserves, that being the UFC lightweight championship. Now, he's not getting Khabib, he's not getting Conor, at least right now, but he is getting Donald Cowboy Cerrone, who is on fucking fire. For the situation, being in his mid-30s now, after all the fights that have piled up on this man's career, you could say that this is the best Donald Cowboy Cerrone that we've ever seen. If you want to argue, you can go ahead and do that down in the comment section below. That's fine to dandy, but ever since this man has had that child, and even he said that when he hear people say that a child changes you, he thought it was bullshit until he had a child and his son seeing his father fight for the very first time. That first fight was against Mike Perry, who's a crazy motherfucker himself. But Cowboy looked across that octagon and he said, "You are not taking food out of my son's mouth." And he proceeded to dominate Mike Perry and eventually put him in a submission, breaking his arm. Then the UFC gives him a fight against a highly touted, undefeated prospect in Alex Hernandez on the very first ESPN show, nevertheless. And Cowboy showed out. You would have thought he was the guy in his mid-20s in that fight, because he dominated Alexander Hernandez pillar to post, and he picks up the TKO victory in the second round. And now we just go back 2 short weeks, and he fights Raging Al Iaquinta, who went into that fight ranked number 4 in the world. And he didn't get a finish like he did against Mike Perry or Alex Hernandez, but he beat the shit out of Al Iaquinta. And Al was giving him some shots too, but it didn't faze Cowboy. Cowboy was like the fucking Terminator in that fight. And at the ripe age of 36 years old, he had a personal best in significant strikes. It's amazing. I don't have a child, but it's amazing what a child can do to a person. How a child can change a man or woman's life. Because in this case, his son Danger has definitely changed his life. The question is now is, does that momentum carry over June 8th? Or does Tony Ferguson put a stop to that? It'll be interesting to see. Because for Donald Cowboy Cerrone, you can argue and say that this is the toughest fight of his career. And he's taking it on less than a month's notice. It won't be easy, and Cowboy sure as hell knows that. But it will be entertaining for as long as it lasts. I'm not going to give my prediction, of course, until UFC 238. I was going to watch the fight anyway, but I may have to start looking under the couches, look under the mattress, look under the cushions and everything, look in some old pans, try to gather up as much spare money as I could, and witness this live. Because it's going to be a fun show, and adding Donald Cowboy Cerrone and Tony Ferguson to the mix, I'm all in for it. But I'm done. I just want to touch on that topic real quick. I appreciate the listen. Like the video, share the video, and remember to subscribe to the channel. Until next time, take it easy. God bless. Peace.